All right, Здравствуйте, hello. This is Ben Taylor. You all know me very well now. I've had a wonderful time with all of my students here, including especially my fourth course students who this presentation has been made for. It's called 3 Lessons for Future Teachers. As you know, I am an English language fellow here, just like Lauren was last year. It's been a fabulous year. Part of the reason I've enjoyed it so much has been working with all of you. You're wonderful students. And before we get into this too much, the first thing I really want to say is congratulations to each and every one of you. You've worked very, very hard at UNU, and I hope that this place has given you some serious friendships that you'll have for the rest of your life, some long-lasting lessons that you'll be able to use as a teacher or whatever you end up doing in your life. And I hope that you can look back at this place with warm memories and with a lot of pride at what a good job you did while you were here. So we'll start this off with a few pictures of me at various points in my career. This is a picture of me in California. I was speaking at a conference. The poster in the back, a lot of times at conferences, I should mention, we do posters instead of speaking presentations. I actually really love poster presentations because they give you an opportunity to talk one-on-one with audience members. Really get a lot of great conversations in that way. So kind of what's going on in this image back here, these are some low resource activities I had for creative writing while in the Peace Corps. And I do now a number of different presentations about my experience there. Probably when I go back to America eventually, I'll talk a little bit about some of what I did in Kazakhstan as well. I've also done a lot of work with study abroad programs, kind of short 3-week to 6-week programs for students from around the world, including Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, a lot of places that are pretty far from America. And the students, maybe in many cases, it's their first time in America. So I end up being a teacher and a friend and kind of a tour guide in a way. It's actually really a lot of fun. This shirt, by the way, is one of my favorites. It's pretty different from some of the dress code I have in Kazakhstan, of course, but it's one that I really enjoyed while I was in the Pacific Islands. I haven't always been a teacher, of course. This is actually a picture of a time when I was selling bison meat, or you might know it better as buffalo meat. I was working with a group that goes to historical reenactments. So these are basically times where people dress up as if they were at Civil War times, or maybe pioneer times, or possibly even medieval, like Renaissance times. And we get in tents and we camp, and then the public will come out and they like to see us and take pictures with us. And I sold meat at one of the kitchens there, and I also sold other foods too. Here I am with someone dressed and looking a lot like President Abraham Lincoln of the United States. So this is not like teaching, of course, but it is a lot of fun, and it made me the person that I am today because it got me into traveling, and it really was one of my first adventures outside of kind of the normal life that most people were experiencing in my hometown. And here I am. I don't know if you can tell what I'm doing looking at this apron here. I was actually serving coffee. You might see the jars back there. I worked at a place called Java Juice. I sold coffee, Vietnamese food, and smoothies. Now that might seem very different from teaching too, and it certainly is, but it actually made me a better teacher when I look back at it now. I was a very shy person, and this job really forced me, because of customer service requirements, it really forced me to be very brave when talking with others, which is something that I really developed over my time working at this place. So I'm very grateful for it. It was actually one of the better jobs I've ever had, kind of as a result. So my first lesson to you is if you're graduating right now and you're not entirely sure what you're going to do next, I think that's okay. I didn't actually graduate with a teaching degree myself. I'd never done any teaching in classes or elsewhere until I went to South Korea my first year after graduating college. I was actually a literature major. So I figured it out later. I didn't really know I wanted to be a teacher until I was about 25. I think it's okay to admit that you don't always know what you're doing. I think it's also true that sometimes we find direction in our lives in very unexpected places. And so the important thing here, whether you're teaching or whatever else you do with your life, is to remember to be patient with yourself and to forgive yourself whenever you make mistakes. I think as teachers, a lot of times we're encouraged to pretend that we're just perfect, that we're never going to make any mistakes, and that this is something that we should show the students. I actually like to remind the students that I'm not perfect. I think it makes my students more comfortable. I think it makes me easier to access as a person for my students. And I think it makes me a better teacher if I can remember that I can learn from the mistakes I have instead of denying that they happen. So that's the first thing I want to say to you today. Here, I don't know if you can see me, I'm on the left here wearing kind of a silly hat. It's a hat to protect me from the sun. I wasn't always a teacher. This is me. If you can see there's a little A on my shirt. That's for AmeriCorps. I was actually a volunteer for a humanitarian organization in the United States. And here we were out cleaning up after a tornado had destroyed a city called Joplin, Missouri, which is actually fairly close to my house, about 6 hours away from my house at home. So during this job, I did get to tutor children, which was great. It was some of my first teaching experience, but I also developed a love of volunteering, and this is something I carried into my future. And I bring this up because I've heard from some students in my classes who want to teach and some who don't want to teach and wanted to do something else, maybe directing films or something like that, and they say, how can I teach when I want to be a film director? Well, I was teaching and I wanted to be a volunteer. So I want to show you how we can actually tie those two ideas together. Here I am also volunteering. Later I was a Peace Corps volunteer in the Pacific Island, and we're picking up trash together here. So me and some cute little guys on this island. So the next thing I want to say is we need to connect the things that we really love with the things that we're going to do. So what are you going to do? Well, if you love it or if you don't, probably you're going to teach for a couple years. And that's okay. In fact, it's great. It's a blessing and an opportunity for you to bring the things you love into the classroom where you'll be teaching. Okay? So here I want you to think about just a couple of questions. You might want to stop the recording here so that you can actually answer these questions for yourself. And if you're with a friend, maybe you could talk about these together. The first question is, what do you love to do? Do you love to dance? Do you love movies? Do you like singing? Are you a person who loves cooking or art? You love something. Usually we know what we love because it's something that we get excited about when talking to other people. I want to know, what do you get excited about when talking to others? And I guess last, I'm interested in knowing, how can you make what you love a part of your classroom environment? I'll give about 30 seconds here, but my recommendation is to stop the slide so that you can answer these questions for yourself before moving on. Okay, we'll move on now, but remember, answer these questions before moving on if you can. So here's what I did. I love volunteering, I love community service, but I was teaching. This was me as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Pacific Islands. I had my students get together. They were about 5th and 6th grade, I think, this class. And they grouped together by neighborhood. So they all live in different parts of the city. And I asked those students in each neighborhood to identify or to find out what was one problem that they had in their community. Maybe some people thought too many people smoke cigarettes and throw them on the ground. There's too much beer drinking, something like that. So I had the students find a few things that they didn't like in their neighborhood, and we made signs about them. What you can see here, if we look at the top, it says no smoking, and then there's a local language there below. So I've got the students working in English and also kind of using their artistic outlets to create a poster that they can actually use in their classroom. And I think this is a pretty fun thing to do. After we used it in the class, the students actually took these back to their neighborhoods and put them up around the city. So actually Pohnpei, where I was working, is a very rainy place, but a lot of these signs stayed up for about 2 weeks. I take that as a big sign of success, that people really were excited about this project. The students, but also parents and community members. So I could teach, yes, and I'm teaching English, but I was also teaching about the environment and about community service. I think there are many, many ways to bring the things that we love into the classrooms where we teach. Okay, this is kind of getting into my next point. I'm not sure you can tell, but this is my classroom from when I was I think 6th grade student, maybe a 5th grade student. I'm not sure you see me yet. If you can't find me, I'll help you out. I'm on the far left, right over here, kind of hiding behind this guy with the Washington, D.C. shirt. And I think it's important to look at this because, yeah, I was happy in this picture, but it's also true that I'm hiding behind somebody. So if that doesn't mean much to you, I just want you to think about that. What do people who hide behind people, what can we say about those people? We might say that they're shy. We might say that they lack confidence. Certainly for myself, this was true. So the one place where I really felt comfortable when I was a little boy was in school, because I had certain teachers that really made me feel confident and comfortable being the best student that I could be. I think this is probably something that helped me become a better teacher when I was older. Again, I want you to stop the slide so that you can think about these questions. The first question is, who was your favorite teacher when you were a child? I had a number of different great teachers when I was growing up. I had in 3rd grade and 5th grade, I had Mrs. Rich, who was a wonderful, especially for English, wonderful teacher, but she taught me all subjects. In 10th grade, I had a woman named Miss Malacarney, who really made me fall in love with William Shakespeare and a lot of British literature, as well as some American classics. I think it was when I decided I loved literature. She really believed in us as students and gave us some space, to develop ourselves. Later in college, I had a woman named Emily Anderson, who's just amazing in her ability to push my writing skills and to make me really a critical thinker when it came to thesis work. And then those same qualities were built even more when I was in graduate school with Suzanne Scott, one of the professors at Humboldt State University, where I got my graduate degree. So I'm grateful to all of these teachers for different things. Many of them were approachable to me and made me feel like I could really be comfortable with who I was as a learner and continue to grow. I guess I'm interested for you. Who was your favorite teacher when you were a child? And aside from just thinking of this person, I guess I also want to ask, why was this teacher such a good influence on you? Because if you can identify the qualities, maybe that they listened to you well, they offered creative ways for you to practice work, that they were a friend to you, or that they encouraged a positive learning environment, whatever those things were, those are the things, hopefully, that you can do in your classrooms to make the same impact on your future students. So for those of you who saw me after our final bell celebration, where I did the Gangnam Style dance, I said to a couple students who said that I was a great teacher, and I really do appreciate that, but the best way to do a tribute to me, if I really did do a good job for you, is try to have the same impact on your future students that I had on you. If you come with that same energy and enthusiasm, they're going to love you and they're going to love education. And that really, as teachers, should be our goal. So I guess my next lesson here is that if you can find a way to love what you do, your students will usually love what you do too. A lot of people say that if I am a good teacher. I don't know that I am, but I hope I am. And I think a lot of people say that what's good about me is that I'm excited, that I have enthusiasm. Well, that's true. I bring an energy to class because it's something that I really enjoy. If you can find a material or a subject that you really enjoy and bring it into your classroom, you'll have the same reaction from students, teachers, parents that I have. And I think it will make your job much more enjoyable in the process. So in closing, I just want to say teaching is a hard job for many reasons. We work really hard. Our schedules are often kind of crazy. It doesn't always work the way that it should. But sometimes it's all worth it. The picture you're looking at here is actually from a couple years ago. I was teaching a study abroad group of Japanese students who were in America. It was their first time out of Japan, and they were going to be with me for 3 weeks. I was their only teacher. A lot of these students didn't have as strong English skills as students that I have at YINU, and they were very shy. I often felt like I wasn't sure I was having much of an impact. It's especially hard to have an impact when you have such a short time as 3 weeks. So I was happy with them, but I kind of thought I hadn't done much. And then on the very last day, the students presented me this little poster here. And it was a picture of us. I remembered taking the picture, but I wasn't prepared for this. Each one of them, if you look at these little colored pictures here, each one of them had written one of their best memories of time with me. And it really demonstrated for me, I was very touched, of course, and it really demonstrated for me the impact that we can have as teachers, even in a short time, without realizing that we're having that kind of impact on our students. So I do have some other tips for teachers. One of them is that we should make objectives for each lesson that are age appropriate, achievable, clear, simple, and measurable. For people who have had me in class, you know I always try to write what we're going to do on the board before we start our lesson. This is because I think students are more interested and engaged in class activities if they feel like they have a part in the classroom itself. And part of the way to do this is to share the plan with them. Okay? I also think it's easy to forget this, especially as we get older. But when you assign a reading or task, I think we should ask ourselves, if you were the student, how would you feel about this? Now, I'm not saying here, I want to be very clear, I am not saying that we shouldn't give difficult tasks for students. I think we should give difficult tasks. It makes our students better, and it shows them that we believe in them and their abilities. But I do think we should be fair. So you try to put yourself in the position, if you're teaching 12-year-olds, think like a 12-year-old for a second, and how are they going to feel about the assignment? Is it fair? It's okay if it's difficult, but it should also be fair. Along with that, I think it's very good to be consistent with our instructions to students. Be very, very clear every time that you give class. Lay out exactly what students will do, how they will do it. Part of this is maybe modeling and showing, which is another one of my points down here. The activity that you'll be doing, because the students need to be not confused. And a lot of times when they're working in a foreign language like English or something like that, they might be too embarrassed to admit that they don't understand. And then they're just going to be lost. We don't want that. Another point that I have, and this is from Diane Larson Freeman. She's one of the leaders of English as a foreign language studies and second language education studies generally. She says, teach reasons, not rules. That's a quote that's always stuck with me. And I think the reason is because we need to not only tell students, do this, don't do this, please come to class on time, please don't cheat. Those are all good things to say. But if we can explain why those are good ideas, the students will feel like we respect them, and they will also remember the rules better. So I think we always should explain why we do anything that we do. I think it's also important to prepare lessons so that not every student has to have the same product. You'll have students who have different strengths in class. Some will be more visual learners, some will be more physical learners. So you've got that issue. And you've also got students who are different ability levels. So I think it's important, of course, you focus on the same material, but you should be ready to have different output from different students. That way they can all play up to their full potential in class. I think it's also really important when students give you a piece of writing or something that we give them feedback. And that means comments and ideas that maybe will make their work better. We can do that orally or we can do it written. But in either situation, we definitely want to give feedback that is specific, focuses on content and language, and includes modeling and paraphrasing. Now, modeling is if we're trying to show how to do a particular task, we should actually demonstrate by showing it ourselves. Like, we can do an example of what that would look like. I think that really helps students understand, whether they're beginners or even more advanced learners. Paraphrasing is taking a big idea and putting it into your own words. This is a good way for students to be able to take difficult information and process it in a way that they will actually remember and be able to use. The last point is difficult, I think, really around the world and also in Kazakhstan, because as teachers we're often rushed. We often feel like we're in a hurry and we're behind on one assignment or another. I certainly feel like that myself often here as well as other jobs I've had. But I do think it is okay to run out of time and to have to complete a lesson in the next session, because language learning is often not a speedy process. We can't rush someone's language learning. Languages, to really become close to fluent in a language, can take years and years. Probably you're all learning yourselves, and you see how little Russian and Kazakh I know even at the end of this year. Я не говорю по-русски. So it takes a long time to be able to get this kind of material, and especially to have it so ingrained that we can speak with any level of comfort in class or in public. So I think we should be patient with students and also with ourselves. So the last thing I want to share with you is that I've actually created a website, web page at least, full of resources that I think might be good for you as young teachers. So I realized I actually kind of created a lot of these resources during the year here. I was never much of a technologically based person. Technology has always been very difficult for me to use in classes. If you were with me first semester, you might remember that I was kind of frustrated with technology at times. I've managed to turn a lot of that around and really focus on building websites and things like that will be useful for students as we move into 2017 and beyond. And so here, I've actually taken a lot of that, as well as some of my stuff that doesn't use so many online resources or makes use of very low resource environments. And then also some of my American Corner sessions. I've shared those all on this website. I hope you can make use of it. You might want to take a photo of this slide or possibly just write down the link. Or you could just click the link if you have this PowerPoint. So hopefully this can be useful to you. You'll notice there's a place, it's a little pink plus sign at the bottom right of the web page. You can click that and add some information you'd like me to share. My website is also, or I'm sorry, my email is also on the web page, so you can actually just follow that and talk to me anytime you want if that's something you're interested in doing. Okay, so I hope this is useful. If you ever need help in your future, advice, you have some kind of teaching problem in your classroom and you want to know what I would do in your situation, please let me know and I'll try to help you. It's been an honor teaching you. It's been an honor working with you. I hope you do very, very well in your future. Reenactment for everything you've done. You're wonderful people. I love you all. Salvonis, this is Ben Taylor. I'll see you around. I'll be in Karaganda next year, so if you ever need anything, hopefully we can talk and I'll be able to share with you from there. So hopefully I'll see you again. Take care, everyone. Salvonis.